Disclaimer: this is a bit of a personal essay that I wanted to put out there in case someone else might be interested in the material I'm about to discuss. I'm only one autistic person, and as the saying goes, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. We are not a monolith, and I'm not saying every autistic person will agree with everything I have to say in this video. But if you decide to hear me out, thanks, you're a real one. To start somewhere, my therapist asked me the other day if I'm interested in pursuing a romantic relationship. Not with her, of course, but just in general. And when I told her that I felt there were a lot of barriers to that for me, as an autistic person who has a lot of walls and masks built up, she told me that we could work on bringing those down. Because she's seen autistic people in relationships and she knows they make it work just like anyone else. Even though I know that is objectively true, I just have a hard time believing in that for myself. And that's why I appreciate 365 Days to the Wedding, a fall 2024 anime that, whether intentional or not, depicts a lot of my personal anxieties about relationships and showed me how my worst fears about myself may not be so bad after all. Maybe it can do that for others struggling in the same ways too. Admittedly, the premise of the show is a bit goofy. It's a fake marriage plot where two colleagues at a travel agency scheme to get engaged so that they can avoid being transferred to a new branch opening up in Alaska. It's the catalyst for their interactions, and while I can't expect such a crazy scenario to come up in my real life, that the incredibly autistic-coded female protagonist, Honjoji Rika, takes the first step to approach the also likely autistic male protagonist, Ohara Takuya, despite her anxieties, reminded me that it's up to us to take the first step in achieving what we want. Quick notice, but from this point on, there will be spoilers. If you don't like spoilers, you should stop the video now and go watch the show, then come back. Or don't, it doesn't really matter. If you don't mind though, let's continue. In the first episode, both main characters show signs of severe social anxiety. Ohara seems to have a speech delay issue that makes him prefer the company of his cat to other people. And Honjoji has RBF. Both are very introverted and often misunderstood by their fellow colleagues because it's not easy for them to communicate in the ways deemed socially acceptable. Despite being meticulous and caring, Honjoji in particular is viewed as intimidating. And that's something I can relate to quite a bit, as I also work in an office and have experienced many issues with being misunderstood by my colleagues due to my direct style of communication and lack of facial expression. Anyway, as the story allows us to see them in their personal lives, there are many more signs that Honjoji has intense focus on a narrow set of particular interests. That is, maps and rock collecting, and struggles to understand human emotion and how to adapt in social interactions. I won't go into depth about all the ways in which she's very autistic-coded, but some highlights include: Number 1, the burnout scene where she is literally exhausted after a demanding weekend of masking and social interacting. Number 2, the confession scene where she goes completely nonverbal for half an hour because she's overwhelmed and can't respond. And number 3, the unmasking episode where they go on a date and she tells Ohara outright that she's going to be doing her thing and he can leave if he gets bored. They make it really obvious. The date episode was my motivation for writing the script. It was far too relatable to watch her mid-date self-sabotage the relationship because that's simply how she expected things to go based on her experiences in the past. Her daily life is so boring and her interests so mundane that she feels he can't possibly be interested in her after this very self-indulgent date at a historical aqueduct. Yet, Ohara proves her wrong. In fact, the reason he asked to go out with her in the first place is because he's drawn to how direct and sincere she is in every aspect of her life. This was a much-needed reminder that somewhere out there, someone exists who might appreciate my candidness. When Honjoji is interested in something, she spaces out thinking about it and immerses herself in the euphoria of enjoyment. And this happens during the date as she is reminded of how this aqueduct has served and built a society since long ago. Caught in this state, she's surprised when Ohara expresses an interest in her special interest and is even searching for more information about it. That there's someone like this out there surprises her, and she decides to run away. She attempts to shut off her emotions and proceed with her plan to break things off. Again, very relatable, and is once again surprised when he doesn't let her back off, instead pulling her closer. It's a physical response, but also a symbolic gesture. For once, someone isn't going to let her retreat into her shell. He pulls her past her self-imposed boundaries, but as she's in danger of falling into the aqueduct, it's also framed as an act to save her life. It's also clear from her internal monologue that she doesn't want to keep distancing herself, that she wants someone to push her out of her comfort zone. That scene was honestly romance at its finest. As happens in these types of shows, when she is propelled forward towards him, they end up with lips locked in a surprise, unintentional kiss. But is this the end? Are her anxieties alleviated just because of the magic of a kiss? No. We still have 2 episodes to go, and her autistic brain needs a lot more time to process. In fact, she decides to leave then and there, over explaining her need to go home and reflect on the day's events while reminding him that this doesn't mean she's angry multiple times before departing. Raise your hand if that resonated with you. And she takes the entire trip to process everything that's happened. Then, in the privacy of her own home, she screams and organizes her rock collection as a means of calming her emotions. This genre of romantic comedy often gets panned because, even though its setting is an office with 2 adults, the adults often act awkwardly like teenagers. While that point is brought up in this show in a self-deprecating manner by Honjoji, who is obviously ashamed at her own lack of experience, I think that it's made very clear that these adults simply haven't had the same life experiences common to their neurotypical or allistic peers. I wouldn't say it's infantilizing of autistic adults though, because these two are fully capable of running their lives outside of romantic and social encounters. The show demonstrates clearly how it is only so dramatic for them because their lack of experience has led to these anxieties in a new situation. As an adult woman, I actually related to the female character a lot, not just through recollections of my teenage years, but my life as a working adult. And I think this portrayal was a healthy reminder that even if I am this awkward, anxious, and clueless person, romance isn't completely off the table for me. But it does challenge me to break out of my own comfort zone and make the effort to put my faith into the belief that there are those who would empathize with my struggles and respect some of my odd ideas or behaviors, even if they don't fully understand the cause for all of that. So I guess what I'm saying is 365 days to the wedding has given me a bit of hope as an autistic woman that I may be able to overcome my anxieties and self-sabotaging behavior and believe in love again. And isn't that exactly what we all hope for from a great rom-com?